Members, we're now moving on to questions to the Minister for the Economy, and I call Andy Allen.
Question 1, Principal Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
My department's Trade and Standards Service has received the following number of complaints in each of the last 5 years. 2020, 10,583 consumer complaints. 2021, 9,799 consumer complaints. 2022, 12,708 consumer complaints. 2023, 12,622 consumer complaints. 2024, 10,817 consumer complaints, and to date in 2025, 6,962 consumer complaints.
Andy Allen for supplementary.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for her response. A large volume of complaints received each year by the Trade and Standards Service. Can I ask the Minister, therefore, for her assessment as to the effectiveness of Trade and Standards Service and how many of those complaints resulted in prosecution?
Minister.
I thank the member for his question. The Department's Trade and Standards Services delivers consumer protection enforcement on the ground, so it delivers a frontline public protection function for the benefit of our consumers, businesses, the wider economy, and that function comprises the twin aims of protecting consumers, particularly the most vulnerable, from illegal and unfair trading practices, and also providing support and guidance for businesses, and particularly small businesses, so they can effectively deal with regulation. It also, as the member has referred to, can undertake investigations when it receives complaints. Given the large number of complaints that are received and the mandate that Trade and Standards Service actually has, and the resource obviously that it has, it's not possible for it to investigate every single complaint it receives, nor can it pursue every issue, so it does prioritise its work, and the service can focus its resources in the areas which will result in the greatest benefits to the economy. I don't have the figures in front of me in terms of the numbers of prosecutions, but I'm happy if the member wants to write to me to share those.
Thank you, Minister. I call Padraig Delargy.
And thank the Minister for her answer so far. Minister, can I ask you what laws are in place to protect consumers from unsatisfactory home improvement services?
I
Minister.
thank the member for his question. Builders and those that provide home improvement services need to comply with a significant number of consumer protection laws. Under the Consumer Rights Act 2015, consumers who enter into a contract for goods and services can expect these to be supplied with reasonable care and skill, and that applies to all traders, whether they're builders, plumbers, decorators, electricians, whatever. The Act also requires that any materials used by any one of those professionals should be of satisfactory quality as described and fit for purpose. The Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act 2024 protects consumers from unfair trading practices by prohibiting misleading actions and omissions, aggressive sales tactics and other unfair practices that distort consumer decisions, and any breaches of criminal consumer protection legislation can result in a trader being subject to enforcement by trading standards, including prosecution, with the courts having the powers to fine or imprison offenders.
Thank you. Question 2 has been withdrawn. I call Mr Philip McGuigan.
And I thank the member for his question. Earlier today, I announced the proposed way forward on RHI following executive approval on the 18th of September. My department will now act swiftly to launch a public consultation and introduce the necessary legislation and regulations to give participants a tariff uplift for this coming winter. Following a period of extensive engagement with stakeholders, this consultation will now bring forward the details of how the scheme will be closed in a manner which is fair to both participants and the taxpayer.
Call Philip McGuigan for supplementary.
And obviously my question was a wee bit outdated given the Minister's statement this morning, but nonetheless I think I do welcome progress. Can I just ask, even though it may well have been covered, Minister, if you can suggest when a replacement scheme might be in place and how much AMI funding would be available for it?
And I thank the member for his question. As I indicated in my responses earlier on, the scheme itself is expected to cost up to 196 million AME over the 10 years, and then there's a DEL cost, a resource cost alongside that, which frees up approximately 100 million AME that once the scheme has been closed, that will be able to be used over that period for a scheme that is designed to effectively cut carbon. So we will be moving, once we have the RHI closure completed, we will be moving to design and to bring forward a replacement, and we will be engaging with Treasury on that basis.
Thank you, Minister. I call David Honeyford for supplementary.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. I welcome the statement this morning and the answer to the question there, and the announcement last week about the renewables and the new scheme coming forward there. But this is all developer led, and I've repeatedly asked for a department plan to link all of this together to give confidence to move forward at the best value money. Is there a plan coming forward, and when will we see that?
Yeah, and I thank the member for his question, and I think he makes an important point, because there are, as he will be well aware, a number of policy areas being developed in tandem, and it is obviously being coordinated across the department, so we can ask officials to share something that can point to what the member is wanting.
Thank you. I call Colin McGrath.
Question number 4.
Minister.
The establishment of local economic partnerships is a new approach bringing together my department, Invest NI, councils and other key economic stakeholders in local areas. Overall, good progress has been made. All 11 local economic partnerships have now been established. There are varying levels of progress around the development of action plans. 4 partnerships are very close to submitting action plans to the department for approval, and others are holding workshops to develop ideas and proposals. We expect that progress on action plans will accelerate from this point forward. Newry Morning Down, the member's own local economic partnership, was the first partnership to be established, and the partnership has agreed an action plan. It's currently going through council approval processes and should be with the department in coming weeks for approval and issue of a letter of offer. I am also visiting Ards and North Down Council on Thursday to hear more about their local economic partnership, and I look forward to visiting more partnerships and seeing action plans progress. The Department and Invest NI will continue to work closely with the partnerships over coming months to develop action plans which address local economic needs and ensure a collaborative approach.
Call Linda Dillon for supplementary. Colin, sorry.
Thank you very much, Principal Deputy Speaker. I wanted to ask, I think this money is good that it pushes it right out across the north and all area can benefit, but I did ask your predecessor, are there any checks and balances in place within each council area to make sure that right across that council area money is being spread around? I know from my area, I want to see that Downpatrick gets its money rather than it simply going to Newry.
Minister.
Yeah, and I thank the member for his question, and I think he makes a fair point. I would suggest, though, that it is the responsibility of the local councillors in the areas and all of those who are represented on the partnerships to ensure there is a fair distribution across the area, and that they are targeting where they need to be targeting in terms of that economic development. I guess the checks and balances are built in, as you would expect, to the business case process in terms of issuing those letters of offer. It's probably slightly different checks and balances to what the member is referring to, but I think the opportunity for local areas to be designing those economic plans and the local accountability then needs to be layered on top of that.
Linda Dillon for supplementary.
And thank the Minister for her answers, and a bit like the previous questioner, I'm going to be selfishly interested in my own area of Mid-Ulster. But just if we can get a sense of what types of projects are likely to be included in the action plans, and I accept that I actually agree with you, local councils are best suited to decide what best the action plans are for
Minister.
their own area.
I thank the member for her question, and I suppose just to give her an update on Mid-Ulster, I understand Council has decided to appoint a consultant to lead on the development of their action plan, who should be in place later in September. So I would encourage her to engage as that goes forward. There are currently a good range of actions being brought forward by the partnerships which as exactly as anticipated, address local economic needs. Proposals include things like business support and mentoring, workspace development and tourism initiatives, but it's very much up to the local area to decide what initiatives are needed and what best fits with their own local economic needs. And I would encourage people to actively engage with the partnerships in their own areas to help shape that.
Philip Brett for supplementary.
Deputy Speaker, Minister, your sub-regional economic plan was launched almost a year ago with these local economic partnerships meant to be at the heart of them. £45 billion allocated to them and not a penny spent to date. Regional balance has got worse under your watch, Minister, and we've had a resignation from the board of Invest Northern Ireland. Do you agree with me that your sub-regional economic plan is not worth the paper it's written on?
I absolutely do not agree with you in respect of that, and I wouldn't expect that you expected me to. And I'm not sure what metric that you are referring to in terms of regional balance having got worse. I think the initiative in terms of the local economic partnerships is very much about democratising economic development. I think the length of time that it has taken partnerships to establish is not unexpected, that it would differ across different council areas, and obviously the devolved responsibility and the devolved nature of councils, and for some in particular bringing together partnerships that may not have existed previously. So councils were starting from different places. The department also had to seek approval of the business case for the fund, which required a careful approach to ensure the type of flexibility that we want to see that is actually going to facilitate these partnerships in delivering. And I'm pleased that now all 11 partnerships have been established, and as I have indicated, we do have well-developed action plans that have enabled officials to undertake financial forecasting. So there will be reduced spend in the first year, but the funding is allocated across the 3 years and will be profiled accordingly.
Thank you. I call David Brooks.
My department regulates the minimum quality standards for visitor accommodation, commonly known as short-term lets, across the north. It makes regulations to set standards for areas such as cleanliness, maintenance, essential facilities and comfort that operators must meet. Tourism MI ensures compliance by inspecting all new accommodation establishments under its statutory certification scheme before they begin operating, and by re-inspecting existing businesses at least once every 4 years. My department and Tourism NI recently completed a review of the scheme's statutory criteria. We will soon launch a public consultation on proposed changes to obtain wider stakeholder and industry feedback. These proposals respond to recent market trends, like the rise of glamping pod and other alternative accommodations, and propose to update the minimum standards and amenities that visitors now expect.
Thank you. Call David Brooks for supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker, and thank the Minister for her answers so far. The Minister will surely recognise that the proliferation of these short-term lets is corrosive to the cohesion of our communities. The availability and cost of family homes within those communities, and also undermines our hospitality sector. Is there a recognition within the Executive that the need to do more for short-term lets than merely to regulate their quality?
And I thank the member for his question, and certainly the sentiment that he expresses, I have a lot of sympathy with. I live in an area that is a big tourism sector, and has many tourism attractions, and you know, these types of short-term lets are increasing, and I think that it is important that we do take a proper look at that. The regulation of short-term lets obviously is a complex area to deliver change in, and there are different policy and operational responsibilities across departments, councils and other agencies. My department and Tourism NI have no statutory powers to limit or to cap or control the number or spread of properties providing accommodation for visitors, and therefore has little or no statutory or regulatory role concerning the impacts on housing, as the member is referring to. However, I am committed to supporting the delivery of the Executive's housing supply strategy, and I'm sure the member is aware that there is a cross-departmental approach being taken, and my officials are working with Departments of Communities and Infrastructure as DFC looks to soon commission research to gain a more informed assessment of the relative impact, if any, of short-term lets on local housing markets. So I think the completion of that research will give us a better understanding of the type of policy interventions that could be required in this area.
Call Emma Sheeran for supplementary.
It's Prior Lashkin Corlia and Buhis Lishan Erev Hanya Fregrishan. Minister, can you outline what the Department and Tourism NI are doing to enforce regulatory compliance for Airbnb and short-term lets?
And I thank the member for her question. Enforcement of the requirement for visitor accommodation to be certified is for Tourism NI under the 1992 Tourism Order, and it includes taking enforcement action against accommodation establishments which have not been certified. Tourism NI regularly engages with representatives of the main online booking platforms like Airbnb to encourage them to align the properties that are listed on their sites with the properties certified by Tourism NI, and that is something that I would strongly encourage in terms of cooperation to continue to grow. Tourism NI also routinely undertakes enforcement action against uncertified operators in accordance with their powers and statutory responsibilities. Upon completing the work of the upcoming public consultation, my Department in Tourism NI will review the overall design and function of the certification scheme, including whether enhanced enforcement powers for Tourism NI, for example, to take action against online booking platforms to improve operator compliance, is required.
I call Matthew O'Toole for supplementary.
Thank you, President Speaker. Minister, I'll let you get your voice back there. There's a lot of people dealing with a cough today. Can I just ask to be clear, so there's a study going on involving Tourism NI to see whether further statutory powers are necessary or further enforcement powers, or both, or one in order to get the other. Can I just ask you to be specific? Is it your intention to legislate to get more power to regulate short-term lets, specifically Airbnb?
Minister.
I thank the member for his question. So in case I have caused confusion, there is the consultation being undertaken in relation to the powers that Tourism NI currently have in relation to accommodation, and upon completion of that consultation, we will look at whether any further powers are required in relation to enforcement. Then there is the broader piece of work that is being undertaken across departments to look at the issue of short-term lets and the impact on our housing supply.
Call Sinead Ennis.
Good question 6.
Minister.
I value the importance of tourism to the Newry Morning Down District Council area, and I recognise that the decision by Minister Muir will have been disappointing for the region. However, our focus is now on finding an alternative use of the funding. While it will be ultimately for Belfast Region City Deal partners to propose an alternative project, I am supportive of retaining the funding in the Newry Morning Down District Council area. My department is actively working with stakeholders, including the Council, to identify alternative projects. Indeed, officials from my department, Invest NI and Tourism NI, met with Council officials in Downpatrick last week to support the exploration of alternative options. I am fully committed to co-design and partnership, working with the Council on the development of a new proposal that will strengthen the local economy, support job creation and bring lasting value to the region.
And I thank the Minister. I think Minister Muir's intervention not only jeopardised the much-needed City Deal funding, but more worryingly calls into question the long-standing memorandum of understanding between our council and his department. Minister, you said you're actively working with officials from Newry Morning Down Council, and I welcome that. Will the Minister commit to sending her departmental officials to continue that exploration work with Warrenpoint Chamber and others on finding an alternative tourism or innovation project?
Minister.
Yeah, and I thank the member for her question. I understand council officials met recently with Warrenpoint Chamber to discuss alternative projects, and I welcome the Chamber's involvement and would encourage the Chamber and others to continue engaging with Council to support the identification of alternative projects, irrespective of whether they're in the tourism or innovation sectors. As I said, my focus is on supporting the Council and the wider Belfast Region City Deal partners to develop the right project that will deliver sustained and inclusive economic growth for the region.
I call Nuala McAllister.
Question number 7.
The reported increase in young people here not in education, employment or training is of significant concern to me. This is a complex area and not unique to here, involving a diverse range of young people aged between 16 and 24 with multiple factors at play. I have asked my officials to consider the factors associated with the increase, for example, the increasing incidence of poor mental health. Could that be contributing to this worrying trend? Many of my department's programmes are aimed at supporting our young people to thrive in training or employment. These include entry-level programmes such as Skills for Life and Work and Step Up, with FE colleges offering flexible delivery to accommodate diverse learner needs. The apprenticeship programme with the recently launched Apprenticeship Action Plan is a key deliverable, and I will soon be consulting on widening participation into higher education. The loss of ESF funding continues to be a challenge in terms of interventions that we can offer. Addressing the trend will require a holistic response from across the executive, and I am committed to working with my executive colleagues to ensure that all of our young people can fully participate and achieve their potential.
Liam Callister for supplementary.
I thank the Minister for your response. Minister, in my constituency in North Belfast, there's many organisations do a lot of work with young people, but one in particular that focuses on young girls, Women's Tech, do some fantastic work, and I want to know if the department is exploring any more those roles that would be more typically male dominated to encourage more of our young people, particularly women, to get involved in those roles.
Minister.
And I thank the member for her question, and I know Women's Tech well. I'm actually visiting their project, which is launched in the Northwest on Friday as part of the Apprenticeship Inclusion Challenge Fund. So the Apprenticeship Inclusion Challenge Fund supports projects that are to facilitate young people from backgrounds who traditionally face barriers, and that includes women, because the numbers of girls participating in apprenticeships is much less than young boys. So that is something in terms of that gap that we want to address, and certainly something I would be supportive of is encouraging more young women and girls into those less traditional roles, and anything that we can do in terms of supporting that. And that includes the work that we are doing through the Careers Action Plan, so that young people know about the variety of options that are available to them and the pathways to get there. So I think there are a number of different pieces of work going on, but I think that in terms of the trends in relation to those young people not in training, education or employment, it is something that is concerning and that we do need to take a more focused look at.
Keir Ferguson for supplementary.
Thank you, Deputy Principal Speaker. Could the Minister just expand on how you and the Department intends to support young people furthest removed from the labour market, particularly those that have disengaged and with low or no qualifications? Thank you.
I thank the member for her question. As I mentioned in my answer, the Department delivers Skills for Life and Work, which is a vocational education and training programme focused primarily on entry-level and level 1, providing guaranteed training place for young people aged 16 to 17 who have left school with no or low qualifications. The programme supports those who have very low or no prior achievement on their journey towards further education, employment or onto an apprenticeship, and serves a cohort of young people that face significant barriers to engagement in work and learning. My officials are also working with training providers to identify progression pathways for programmes to better support outcomes for young people. And we also support the Peace Plus Youth programme, which targets young people aged 14 to 24 who are disadvantaged, marginalised or at risk of involvement with violent or paramilitary activity. Typically, these young people have disengaged from mainstream provision. Participants can develop their capabilities in areas such as good relations, personal development and employability, alongside a focus on identifying the next step of their journey.
Thank you. I call Alan Chambers.
Speaker, question number 8, please.
Minister, thank you.
Over the last 3 years, cruise line visits have consistently contributed £20 to £25 million per year to the local economy. This is dependent on the number of ships visiting, their passenger capacity and uptake of ticket sales. Over the last 3 years, annual cruise ships visits have increased from 141 ships in 2022, delivering 20 million to the economy, to a high of 158 in 2023, bringing 25 million economic benefit. 2024 saw a drop back to 143 visiting ships with an estimated 20 million economic benefit, and by the end of the 2025 season an increase to 147 ships are scheduled to visit, delivering an estimated economic impact in excess of £23 million. These economic impact figures are taken from a recent report commissioned by Belfast Harbour and supported by Visit Belfast. The report estimates the direct spend by passengers and crew during their visits, as well as by the cruise lines, such as pre-arranged passenger tours, port services and locally supplied provisions.
Alan Chambers for supplementary.
Sir, undoubtedly those figures prove that attracting cruise liners to Belfast has been a huge success story. But Minister, the added value is if cruise passengers plan a return visit to explore more of what Northern Ireland has to offer. Has any research been carried out into that potential, and are we actively encouraging it? Thank you.
And I thank the member for his question. And I think that it is an important area to look at, and certainly the experience over the summer with the Open as a shop window, for want of a better term, to everything that we have to offer is a similar opportunity. And I think that it's the work that Tourism NI and Tourism Ireland do in terms of marketing what we have to offer, and then people come in and experiencing it for themselves. It does encourage them to come back, but in terms of specific research in respect of that, I would welcome the member writing to me on, and I'm happy to furnish him with anything that we do have, or to look at what we might need.
Eva Finnegan for supplementary.
Can the Minister provide an update on the new cruise tourism facilities being constructed as part of the Shared Island project?
Minister.
Belfast Harbour recently commenced the construction of a new £90 million deep water berth at the D3 site in Belfast Harbour. This facility will initially provide dedicated cruise passenger facilities to replace the current cruise location at D1, which is expected to be required to handle offshore wind farm projects later this decade. The £90 million investment is funded by Belfast Harbour as part of its 5-year strategy to advance regional prosperity, and is not in receipt of Shared Island funding. Belfast Harbour has identified a further significant investment opportunity on the D3 site, which would make it capable of further bolstering Belfast Harbour's capability to support the offshore wind supply chain. Such investment is beyond the current funding availability to Belfast partner who have been engaging with both DFI and DFE around making a joint proposal to the Shared Island Fund, alongside a bid from the Port of Cork to further enhance the development of a dual-use solution for cruise and offshore wind.
Call Brian Kingston for a supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Principal Deputy Speaker, and I'll give the Minister time to get a glass of water. Those figures are very encouraging. I remember the excitement when the first cruise ship came to Belfast in 1996, and now we've around 150 every year, so it's part of the success story of Belfast. Given the vital importance of the tourism sector for our economy, I do have to ask, Minister, why you have imposed a real-term cut to the Tourism Northern Ireland budget.
Minister.
And I thank the member for his question. I think we all recognise the very challenging budgetary environment that we are in, and across the departments we've all faced difficult decisions over the course of the past couple of years. In terms of the approach to the budget this year, to be able to take forward some of the priorities that we have as a department, we had to look across the rest of the department to reduce the costs, and so right across all of the divisions of the department there was some level of reduction imposed, and therefore that has also impacted on our arm's length bodies. We have uplifted Tourism Ireland's funding, which had fallen back over the past number of years, and to ensure my own priority in terms of tourism. We have the publication of the Tourism Vision and Action Plan, and we are working alongside all of our arm's length bodies in terms of looking towards the 3-year budgeting process to try and ensure that we are maximising the potential that we do have within the budgetary constraints that we have.
Okay, thank you, Minister. That ends the period for listed questions. We'll now move on to 15 minutes of topical questions. Just to inform you that topical question number 8 has been withdrawn, and I call Sinead McLaughlin.
Speaker, Minister, the Lions review into Invest NI highlighted the need for greater public accountability. Kieran Kennedy recently resigned from the board of Invest NI, citing discrimination against the North West and a lack of commitment to regional balance. Was he wrong?
I thank the member for her question, and I regret that Kieran has resigned over an operational decision. In terms of the North West and my commitment to regional balance, I think that the evidence is there in respect of that, and I think in terms of the announcements that have been made recently in respect of investment into City of Derry Airport and into McGee expansion, but also working alongside Invest NI in terms of the type of investment that we have seen and in jobs announcements and in R&D investment just as recently as last week in Seagate, EY, Alchemy, Fintru. Those are announcements that I've all had the opportunity to attend over recent weeks and months since I've been in post. So I think there has been a shift in respect of the commitment to deliver in terms of regional balance, and certainly it's something that I'm absolutely committed to. It's one of the 4 priorities that make up the economic vision.
Sinead McLaughlin for supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. These investments, the private sector investments that you speak about, were predominantly made by the private sector themselves. So, Minister, that wasn't good enough for Kieran Kennedy, a man who has dedicated to seeing economic fairness delivered for the North West region. So how do you expect it to be good enough for the people of Derry? And is it good enough for you?
As somebody who is from the North West, I have a vested interest in making sure that it is invested in and that we absolutely deliver for the people that we represent there. And I know that is something that the member also shares. As I say, I'm disappointed, obviously, that Kieran felt that he had to take the decision he did. I understand the reasons that he did in terms of the decision around the office in the North West. That's something that I know Invest NI continues to work towards resolving. But as I have indicated, my commitment to delivering on regional balance is, I think, clear and evident to see. And I think that the delivery we have seen over recent weeks and months supports that. And it's something that I will ensure in my term of office continues.
Paul Frew, please.
Given the public utterances of the CEO of Wrightbus over the weekend, Minister, regarding unfair domestic decisions by His Majesty's Government and the spectre of Chinese companies coming into competition with our companies that receive Chinese state funding, whilst our government heaps on a burden of employer contributions and national insurance, what more can the Minister do to support Wrightbus?
I haven't seen the CEO's comments, so I'm not entirely sure what the member is referring to, but I think I understand the gist of it, and certainly in terms of the representations that we have made as an executive in respect of some of the decisions that have been made by the British Government in terms of the likes of the employers' national insurance contributions. I know that's something that the Finance Minister continues to make the case in regard. In terms of the support that we can provide Wrightbus, of course, we're there in terms of the various supports through the likes of Invest NI, but also the department in terms of skills and development, R&D, innovation support. So those are things that we're all absolutely happy to continue to work with the company on.
Mr. Frew for supplementary.
I thank the Minister for her response and answer. Given that Wrightbus is the largest employer in my constituency, in the top 10 in Northern Ireland, and with regards research and development ahead of its field by a margin, will the Minister commit to applying pressure on the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland to make sure that there's nothing domestically in the UK that disadvantages Wrightbus unfairly with regards to its domestic competitors? And if I write to the Minister, will she visit Wrightbus to hear first-hand from the CEO?
And I thank the member for his question, and certainly if you write to me, we will absolutely endeavour to fit that into the diary. In terms of the engaging with the Secretary of State, I have absolutely no difficulty in doing that. I think as an executive we are united in respect of some of the decisions that have been taken by the British Government since it has been in office and the impact that it's having on local business. And for a government that claims to have an objective of economic growth, I don't think that the decisions that they have taken match up with that commitment.
Colin Tennyson.
Deputy Speaker, Minister, you have reiterated your support for 80% renewable energy by 2030, and that's a commitment that I share. Critical to that will be the delivery of the North-South interconnector. For the avoidance of doubt, Minister, do you and does your department support the interconnector being delivered as currently designed?
Minister.
And I thank the member for his question, and I think that I have been fairly clear on this matter previously. The North-South interconnector is critical infrastructure in terms of our renewable targets and ambitions, and most importantly of all in terms of cutting costs for consumers. I've been very clear about my own party position in relation to the North-South interconnector. I've also been clear about the obligations that we have as a department in terms of taking that forward.
Owen Tennyson for a supplementary.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker and Minister. I'm not sure you can disaggregate your party position from your position as Minister. Minister, given that you claim it is Sinn Féin's position that this be undergrounded, how is that consistent with your colleague, the Infrastructure Minister's position, who has fended off legal challenge from those who want the pylons to be undergrounded? And to be clear, I want to see the project progress as currently designed.
Yeah, and I know the member will be well aware that the project was previously approved by a previous infrastructure minister, and that we have obligations in terms of delivering on what has been approved in terms of the planning, and both the departments have obligations in terms of delivering on that.
Brian Kingston.
Speaker, and the Minister will be aware that among the land portfolio of Invest NI is the former Mackey's factory site, which closed over 25 years ago between the Springfield Road and Woodville Avenue in West Belfast. Invest NI has repeatedly confirmed to me that this is owned and reserved for employment creation, and they are marketing it to potential client companies. Has the Minister made any representation to Invest NI to push for job creation on this site, or can she commit to doing so?
Minister.
I'm not aware that I've engaged with Invest NI in respect of that piece of land specifically. If the member wants to write to me about it, I'd be happy to take on board what he's saying and to engage.
Brian Kingston for supplementary.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will follow up then in writing, and I will also add in the Glenbank Industrial Estate on the Crumlin Road in North Belfast, where again there's significant land which has been empty for over 25 years, so I'll follow up with that as well.
Sean Mulholland.
Very much, Principal Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Minister. Can I ask, Minister, further to the 2.8 decrease in renewable energy consumption, for an update on delivery of the offshore renewable energy plan?
Yeah, and I thank the member for her question. And in terms of the renewable energy consumption statistics, they have shown a slight reduction over the last year. The fluctuations I think that we do see in terms of our renewable energy consumption are because of a variety of reasons, and some of the constraint that we have in our system currently, and don't necessarily reflect a reduction in renewable energy generation capacity. In terms of the offshore renewable energy action plan, so the strategic environmental assessment and habitat regulation assessments have been, the consultation and those have completed, and the work is ongoing in terms of the next steps in delivering offshore. We recently saw a research report undertaken by Intertrade Ireland that looked at the potential for offshore on the island of Ireland, and we are significantly well placed in terms of the types of sectors that are needed to support the supply chain. So I think it's something that we do need to keep a continued focus on in terms of our renewable energy potential and what we clearly have in terms of our natural assets.
Sean Mulholland for supplementary.
Thank you. And obviously, Minister, you'll know that we have a target in the Climate Change Act of 80% electricity from renewable sources by 2030. How important do you think that offshore energy is to achieving that, and how likely is it that your department will achieve?
I thank the member for her question, and just on Friday we published the Renewable Electricity Price Guarantee final scheme design, and that will be a significant lever in terms of meeting the 80 by 2030 target, which will encourage the investment in terms of renewables, which has very much dropped off since 2016 when the previous scheme ended. So that will be a significant player in terms of helping us to deliver on that target. In terms of the work that still needs to be done in respect of offshore renewable energy and the kind of timelines that we are talking about, it's not really anticipated that offshore will play a big role in delivering on the 2030 target, and it could be beyond 2030 before it really becomes a key part of what we're trying to deliver, which is why it's really important that we did get the Renewable Energy Price Guarantee Scheme published at the end of last week, and why we will be pushing forward in terms of the legislation to get that scheme established and the first auction undertaken as soon as possible.
Colin Dillon.
Privlesh Cancorlia. Minister, can you give us an update on where you are with the review on the post-19 SEN provision, please?
In June, following a comprehensive review, I outlined my proposals for a programme of reforms for school leavers with special educational needs. Subject to appropriate investment, the changes will enhance the pathways and supports for school leavers who want to access the Department's education, skills and training provision. Following my Assembly statement, I also circulated a paper to executive colleagues on a range of cross-cutting issues and those relating to other departmental remits. A collaborative approach is crucial to delivering on our PFG commitment to all young people with special educational needs. My officials are working through the scoping and planning for this significant reform programme, as well as making progress with early actions. We have led on the development of a joint bid to the Transformation Fund with the Departments of Health, Communities, Education and Infrastructure, as well as preparing spending review bids.
I thank the Minister for your answer so far. Minister, you'll know that obviously there are some parents who are still very concerned that their young people will not be included and will not be able to access post-19 provision. Can you outline what conversations you're having specifically with the Health Minister around ensuring that young people can access post and that they're getting sufficient help through health as well as your office?
And I see the Health Minister sitting across the chamber with me, and he will confirm that we have engaged in relation to this, and my officials also have regular contact with the Department of Health on the review and our proposals, as well as on the development of that joint transformation bid. In June, I announced my intention to bring forward statutory assessment and support arrangements for learners with special educational needs accessing further educational colleges. Officials are at the start of the process of developing detailed arrangements and will be engaging with health colleagues as part of the work, and we understand the workforce and capacity challenges across our health and social care trusts, and that can impact on the pace at which they agree and put in place arrangements for young people with care needs accessing further education. But the need to address capacity across the entire system is one of the issues I raised in my statement in June, and which I continue to engage with colleagues in the Executive on.
Call Peter Martin. Very quickly, Peter.
I can do it quickly, Principal Deputy Speaker. Minister, thank you for your answer so far. I've spoken to many local businesses in the last year, and they've raised three specific issues to me. What is the Minister doing to assist small local independent businesses, specifically with energy costs, rates and national insurance rises?
Well, the last two don't really fall to me in terms of rates. obviously the Finance Minister has responsibility. I have responsibility for business, and will certainly engage with him in terms of any proposals that he's bringing forward. And obviously I'm aware of the programme of review, because I put it in place while I was Finance Minister. National insurance contributions, I have spoken to one of your colleagues about there just earlier on, and we continue to make representations to the British Government in respect of the decisions that were taken and that do have had a demonstrable damage and impact on local businesses.
Thank you.
And
sorry, Minister.
I didn't get to answer the bit that...
No, I know, but time has eluded us. So that ends questions to the Minister for the Economy. Linda Dillon has given notice of an urgent oral question to the Minister of Health. I would remind members that if they wish to ask a supplementary